This is a monstrous story about how the closest family members can turn out to be traitors. A 17-year-old girl disappeared under strange circumstances after arguing with her mom and stepdad. At first, it seemed like she had decided to run away from home. But after a thorough investigation, the police uncovered the truth that will send shivers down your spine. 17-year-old Bernadette Walker lived in the English town of Peterborough with her family. After school, she enrolled in a local college and started studying photography. She planned to pursue a career in the field. Relatives and acquaintances described her as shy but very friendly and positive. She had many friends, but most of the time, she interacted with them through social media. Her mom, 37-year-old Sarah, had 9 children. She had been dating and living with Scott Walker for a long time. Despite not being married, the woman took his last name for herself and her children. In 2018, Sarah and Scott broke up but continued to live in the same house. Meanwhile, Sarah entered into new relationships. Scott was Bernadette's stepdad, but she was used to calling him dad. All of this may seem quite strange, but the family couldn't be called dysfunctional. At least they didn't lack the means to support themselves. On July 17, 2020, Bernadette stayed overnight at Scott's parents' house, who effectively acted as her grandparents. The next day, Scott picked her up to take her home. And here is where something strange happened. According to Scott, they had an argument during the drive. When he stopped the car on the side of the road, the girl ran out and disappeared in an unknown direction. Since then, according to his own version, Scott hasn't seen her. On July 21st, 3 days after her disappearance, Bernadette's mother contacted the police. The call was made at 3 a.m. Sarah reported that the last time they saw her with Scott was on July 18th. Sometime after Bernadette ran out of the car, she messaged her mom saying she didn't want to come back home and planned to stay with her ex-boyfriend for a while. According to Sarah, this wasn't the first time her daughter had run away from home, but she always came back. They exchanged a few more messages. But on July 20th, Bernadette stopped responding. That day, around 1 a.m., she messaged her mother saying she would come home soon. Her older brother decided to contact Bernadette's ex-boyfriend and asked him to tell her to call their mom. However, the young man stated that she hadn't been to his place and hadn't contacted him. The mother messaged several of Bernadette's friends, but they all assured her that the girl wasn't with them. After that, she made the decision to contact the police. The operator asked Sarah to provide details about the day when the girl was last seen. Upon hearing about the argument with Scott in the car, he inquired about the reasons for this conflict. Sarah admitted that she had quarreled with her daughter the day before, which led her to decide to spend the night at Scott's parents' house. When her stepfather came to pick her up, he asked Bernadette to apologize to her mother. However, the girl stated that she had no intention of returning home, got out of the car, and ran away. Scott tried to catch up with her but was unsuccessful. The operator found this account quite strange, yet the police did not find any reason for a serious investigation. Everything seemed as if the girl was not in any danger and would eventually return home. However, soon the case was handed over to another detective, who became seriously intrigued by a very peculiar set of facts. The police searched Bernadette's house and also spoke with Scott. Within a few days, It became known that the homicide department had taken an interest in this case. During the search in the girl's room, the officers found her personal diary, which made them view the case from a completely different angle. Shortly before her disappearance, Bernadette wrote about an argument with her mother and detailed the reasons behind it. On that day, she had decided to reveal a horrifying truth to her mother. Scott had been harassing her for the past 7 years. The girl also mentioned that he had installed hidden cameras in the bathroom and her bedroom. Bernadette hoped her mother would help her, but instead, her mother called her a liar and threatened her not to dare contact the police. Due to this argument, Bernadette chose to spend the night at her grandparents' house. The fact that Scott was the one who came to pick her up the next day raised serious suspicions for the police. Detectives questioned Scott, and he did not deny installing cameras in the bathroom. However, his explanation raised even more questions. Allegedly, he did it because Bernadette was hiding candy wrappers there, and he wanted to catch her in the act. Naturally, the police didn't believe this and decided to dig deeper. By checking Scott's smartphone records, they discovered another alarming fact. Scott's phone was turned off for 90 minutes right after he picked up Bernadette from her parents' house. As soon as his phone powered back on, Scott called Sarah. Although there was no recording of their 9-minute conversation, the cumulative evidence was enough to form a grim hypothesis. Before the detectives, a chilling theory emerged. Scott might have harmed Bernadette immediately after picking her up. During the next 90 minutes, he could have hidden her body, turning off his phone to prevent location tracking by the police later that day. Then he called Sarah, informed her of what happened, and asked for her help in covering up her daughter's disappearance. The detectives realized that if this theory held true, the girl's mother was undoubtedly aware of the truth and had assisted him. While the police explored this horrifying version, Sarah and Scott were not idle. Sarah urged the public to help find her daughter, distributing flyers and posting them around. Scott wrote a heartfelt social media post, pleading with Bernadette to get in touch and assure everyone that she was okay. He added that the entire family was worried and loved her. 7 weeks after Bernadette's disappearance, the police reclassified the case. It was now treated as a homicide without a body. Such cases are exceptionally rare because proving guilt without a body is incredibly challenging. Nevertheless, the detectives believed that the girl was no longer alive. Following the reclassification, they first arrested Scott and then Sarah. But where did all these messages come from that Bernadette sent to her friends and mother after her disappearance? By that time, the police already had an answer. They tracked the movement of her smartphone and concluded that on the day of the girl's disappearance, the phone was in the vicinity of warehouse facilities where containers were rented for storage. Studying the geolocation of Sarah and Scott's smartphones, the police discovered that they had also visited that location multiple times within 2 days of Bernadette's disappearance. Thus, it appeared that they were the ones sending those messages from her phone. Another fact supported this version. One of Bernadette's friends, who received messages from her account, shared suspicions with the police. According to the friend, the writing style was completely different, and they initially sensed something was amiss. Armed with all this information, the police charged Scott and Sarah with obstruction of justice. Soon, Scott faced an additional charge related to homicide. He denied his guilt, insisting that the girl had indeed run away from his car. However, he couldn't provide the police with the exact location where this happened. As for Sarah, she proved more cooperative. When detectives presented her with the existing evidence and mentioned the potential prison sentence she faced, she began to talk. Sarah admitted to sending messages from her daughter's phone and accounts. On the day of Bernadette's disappearance, Scott called her and demanded help in covering up the crime. However, Sarah claimed that he didn't explicitly reveal the details of the offense. She only mentioned that he threatened her and her new lover with harm if she refused to assist. Sarah began to adhere to the version that she only helped the criminal out of fear for her own life. Meanwhile, detectives uncovered another strange moment. After her daughter's disappearance, Sarah searched Google for how to track a mobile phone. This indicated that she was making serious efforts to conceal the truth. Despite her confession, detectives still had no idea where Bernadette's body was. Because Scott had turned off his phone, they couldn't even roughly determine the search area. Scott himself, of course, was in no hurry to share this information, as it would confirm his guilt. But he still couldn't avoid punishment. On September 10, 2021, the final court hearing took place, and Scott Walker was found guilty of Bernadette's demise. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole no earlier than 32 years. Here it is worth clarifying one point. In Britain, there is a law that prohibits a criminal from applying for early release if they are found guilty of manslaughter. But the victim's body was not found. In other words, Scott can only expect to be released from prison if he reveals the location where he hid Bernadette's body. As for Sarah, she received 6 years in prison for obstructing justice. This sentence outraged many people because the woman knowingly covered up for the criminal. However, the court couldn't impose a harsher sentence because there was no evidence indicating that Sarah actually knew about the crime, even though it seemed quite obvious. Thanks for watching.